the language of that bill and what it does, but this is going to be the first of a series of policies I'm going to put forth on judicial reform. I supported the bill that came out of the House last week under JMSC reform, anything to get it out of the hands of legislators who have cases before the prosecutors, cases before the solicitors, and cases before the judges that they are appointing. The cleaner, more ethical, less corrupt the process will be. But this is an issue that affects so many families across the state, and we need leadership who's going to understand how devastating these decisions can be, what goes on. And I've learned recently, because I was pro se for a couple of weeks, not much longer, but I learned through the judicial process about all these privileges and what rights I had that I didn't know that I had, and how some of my rights have been taken away in a court of law. And so I'm going to work very hard not only to reduce taxes to zero, work on illegal immigration, work on the energy crisis that our state is in right now. We've got to have judicial reform. People want a fair shot, a fair chance in our court system, and this is the first step to doing so. Now, transitioning to Epstein, on Saturday night, the DOJ decided that they would tell the world that they've released every single document related to the Epstein Files that they were required to by law, and then they threw out a list of names of high-profile people. Those are not all the files. They're holding on to files. In fact, I sent a letter to the DOJ on Thursday requesting a list of files that they removed from their website because they threw up some files and they took the files back down. I want to know how many files, what files they were, and why they were taken down. Now, some excuses are, well, the files weren't properly redacted. Well, if they were not properly redacted, what was improper about them, and when are they going back up? And so that's problematic. As I read through their letter and their excuses about how they are protected by certain privileges at the DOJ, they don't have those privileges, okay? So when a case is concluded and the investigation is over and there are going to be no more indictments, you can't hide behind a work product doctrine, work product privilege, and other privileges that they are citing, because the case is over and the case is closed. And I believe the DOJ has recently acknowledged they are not going to make any more arrests, and there's no indication that they are. So they cannot, it would not hold up in a court of law when a federal judge decides that they release all the documents properly. The answer is going to be...
All right, so we want to get to a live report from Rhode Island. Again, a shooting at a skating rink. Let's take a listen there.
Huge police presence here as we were driving north up towards Pawtucket. There were ambulances going south. The whole area around here is blocked off by police tape. I was being stopped as I was trying to get myself to the scene here. Looks like people are sitting outside. Not a ton of movement, but if you look all the way down this street, red and blue, sirens and lights are going on for blocks. Everything is starting to be kind of taped off. We're seeing caution tape around here. We're seeing all sorts of law enforcement. Looks like Pawtucket Fire and Rescue is here. It was not a school day, so there are not, we don't know how many students were inside. We're trying to get as much information as we can, but a lot is really unknown right now. The most that I can tell you from what I'm seeing is Warwick Police is here, Pawtucket Fire and Rescue is here. There's people standing outside. We don't see people coming out. That's really the extent of what I can describe to you for, what I'm seeing. We'll continue to, keep you updated. We're going to try to talk to some law enforcement to try to get a better understanding of what is happening. What do we know? There's a lot that is unknown. The level of police presence and response here is really quite large. And, as we were driving up and down on the highway, that is, really what we could see is people all around the area, not just in Pawtucket, were responding to the situation as it rapidly unfolds here. I'll toss it back to you.
All right, so again, that is a live report there from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where a shooting reported there at an ice rink where a hockey game was taking place. Let's go back now closer to home. We want to go to Columbia, South Carolina. We brought this to you just moments ago before that live report. This is Representative Nancy Mace holding a press conference outside the South Carolina State House. Take a listen in.
very suspicious sort of stuff. I think there's more going on than meets the eye, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Again, this is not political for me. This is deeply personal. I met recently with the victims last week. In fact, it was on the 1-year anniversary of my floor speech, and I'll be doing everything I can to expose the truth, regardless of who it names. My list of names when I put it out will be nonpartisan. It'll be equal opportunity, Democrats and Republicans. I don't care who you are, but if you are affiliated with this monster, we're going to expose it. So with that, I'll take some questions on either thing.
How many bills is your JMSC judicial reform package?
I haven't decided yet. I'm working through it in real time, but it'll be probably at least a half dozen or so. So some of it I support already. So there's like 2 bills right now about magistrates having law degrees and how they, I support that. I would consider something like that a piece of it. Term limits on judges, whether or not legislators can have any bit of the process of this, that's going to be no. They should not be involved in any process of picking judges if you are an attorney. The level of, I think, potential corruption there is just too grave and too high. But also, we've got to be able to have a real way to get these people out of there and impeach them too. And the same thing goes with solicitors. I mean, you have some counties, like in Sumter County, at one point last year, Sumter County had over 60 murder cases and attempted murder cases on the docket that weren't being tried. In Charleston County, over 350 murder cases and attempted murder cases not being tried. The number of people that are coming to my office every day on different cases. There's a murder case that I'm going to expose here soon that was in another county, and this was a disabled man who was stabbed to death in 2017. And this was going to be a state prosecuted case. It's 2026, 9 years. Do you think there's ever been a trial? And his murderer is walking free 9 years later. So there's just so much that's broken with the system. I'm taking what I've learned and then gonna show how to fix it.
Are you gonna try to push for the legislature is not involved in actually voting on judges?
What's that?
You want a situation where the legislature...
Oh, for sure. I've drafted a bill for that already. Yes, I don't want the legislature involved, but again, they're never going to take that power away from themselves. They're never going to do that. I can propose it until I'm blue in the face, and I will propose it because there are some states, we're one of the only states in the country that does this, but in a lot of states, the governor might appoint some, or there might be some advising consent of the Senate, or some hybrid thereof, and I've put that policy together, which I'll be releasing to in the next couple weeks.
With a lot of these policy pushes, obviously they're coming on the heels of conversations that are still happening in the General Assembly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like talking about specific facets of your proposal, it goes a little bit further than what they're proposing. Obviously, you're running for governor. When you get there, you're going to be dealing with the General Assembly that's more or less going to be doing, I guess, having these conversations that voters want to have. So. In these instances where you're having your own proposals and the legislature is offering proposals that you appear to disagree with, would you just outright veto something you wouldn't agree with?
No, everything's in a negotiation. So what I'm doing here by proposing policies that I've drafted is how I would operate as governor. So you're gonna see, and I've already seen, a slate of policies that I embrace. And sometimes I embrace things from the legislature. Sometimes I disagree with the legislature. Sometimes I'm going to take the best of both worlds and say, hey, since this can't pass, try this, right? And so that's part of making it work, because my goal as governor is going to be the most productive governor in South Carolina history, which means you have to sit at a table and you have to do some give and take. And some of my bills might go a little further, some might go less, and then in some cases, like when I did the no tax on babies proposal, that was taking something that had already been proposed but slimming it down into something that could pass in a faster fashion. So what you'll see me do is propose things that would be easier for whether it's a conservative, a moderate, a centrist, whomever in the legislature, that I think would be more susceptible to passing.
I remember, not a year ago, but several months ago, we spoke and you talked about using the governor's office as sort of a bully pulpit to get things across.
There's that too.
I'm hearing a bit of a shift in tone, though. Would you say you abandoned that approach?
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, if you want to expose something that's very bad going on, you have to say something. And so I've never been a shrinking violet. I mean, look what I'm doing right now over the Epstein Files. Some would say against my personal and professional, to my detriment, but it's the right moral thing to do. I mean, I just watched a video that someone sent me on the way over here about a state senator saying that someone tried to entice him with $100,000 to vote on the tort reform bill. that kind of thing has to be exposed, and it can't go on. So I think it's a bit of both of negotiating. What you all haven't reported on yet is I'm the 22nd most bipartisan member of Congress. And so the press will report one thing. I've actually been very successful. I just passed a bill out of the Oversight Committee unanimously. Actually 2 bills. Every single Republican and Democrat on the committee voted for it. And so I know that if I'm looking at something I want to get across the finish line, well, where can I find that common ground? Where can we find that middle ground to actually get something done? And I know that as governor, I won't get everything that I want, but neither will the legislature. So, we do have to work together, and there's going to be a bit of that in the process.
Congresswoman, on that note of sort of working with the legislature but also standing firm on your priorities, are there previous South Carolina governors that you would look to as kind of a model on that?
I'm my own person.
You have timing on a lieutenant governor announcement?
Nope.
Have you have a short list or anything?
Yeah, I got a short list.
Want to share with us?
Nope. No. No, it's all cooking with gas right now. We're cautiously optimistic. We have our first candidate forum tonight, and very much I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. Any other questions?
Representative Mace, Attorney General Pam Bondi released a letter to Congress saying no records were withheld on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. What would you say to that?
That's not true. That's not true. And in fact, I spent the weekend reviewing some information, and there were pinhole cameras in every single room of every single property of Epstein's properties. Those were not, neither the audio nor the video were included in those files. There were cameras throughout his planes, audio and video. Those were those. There are files that have been taken down off the DOJ's website. One of them is actually highly embarrassing to me, because it was just somebody right after I announced my run for governor, put something out there about me and Ron DeSantis from, 20 years ago, which I didn't even know Ron DeSantis was a person back then, but they should disclose that. That's in the files, and it was taken down. Why was it taken down, right? Everything should be put out there, but it's not, and a lot of the information they have is redacted. So, for instance, when it comes to the co-conspirators and naming names of those individuals, you can't name the names. I can't read the names on the Southern District of New York documents because they were redacted when they came over to the DOJ. What's that about? And why are they hiding it?
Speaking of that document, I remember another name